Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. There's plenty of people still joining, so take this moment if you'd like to get a glass of water. Now's your chance, and we'll begin in a few minutes. So I think we can slowly begin. So good morning again to everyone. Welcome very much to this European City Network webinar in collaboration with the EURegionsWeek Close to You sessions. So who are we? We are the European Capital of Democracy non-profit organization, which was founded by the Innovation in Politics Institute, a Europe-wide organization dedicated to improving politics, with offices in Vienna and Berlin. And we have partners in 20 European countries and beyond. And this is part of the European City Network webinar series. This is a map of our network here. We have 24 members across 15 European countries. Vienna is the current European Capital of Democracy. They took over from Barcelona last year. And Cascais will take over in 2026 as the next European Capital of Democracy. And quick run through the agenda. So after this brief introduction, we will look at the presentation from the city of Brussels before the city of Vienna will present. And then after that, we will have two breakout rooms, one for Brussels and one for Vienna. And you can choose which breakout room you would like to join for the more in-depth question and answer session. And then we'll come back into the main session together at the end to have the feedback and summary of these Q&A sessions and a little bit of an outlook for what the rest of 2025 has and 2026. Well, so firstly, I would like to introduce our speakers. We have Alderman Frederik Ceulemans from the city of Brussels, who's responsible for urban renewal, climate, citizens' participation, and Dutch language affairs. And we have Sarah Zauner from the Office for Climate Affairs in the city of Vienna. So without further ado, I would like to please hand over to Frederik for his presentation.
Thank you so much, and hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'll quickly share my presentation, and I hope this is very visible to you. Otherwise, give me a sign. And it works very well. Thank you. So good morning. My name is Frederik Ceulemans. I am indeed the Alderman for the city of Brussels. And I started my adventure, I would say, in December last year. So in a few months or in 2 months, I'll be in office for a year. And since my start, I put my ambitions or my goals into one phrase, and that's together we're building Brussels for tomorrow. And that's not just a hollow phrase. For me, it's pretty much reality, because with city renewal, citizens' participation, and climate, you have three very interesting and very combinable aspects of governing a city, which enables collaborative governance, which enables co-creation, and which creates partnership, or that's at least the goal. So my roadmap to climate neutrality is by start as a co-creation process with residents, not imposed above, because let's be honest, we cannot leave people behind if you want to accelerate and if you want to move towards our climate goals. I think that's the reason why we're all here. And cities, more than everything, more than nations, more than regions, cities are the forefront of climate action and ecological transition. So scaling up successful examples into neighborhoods, creating net zero neighborhoods for people, for the lives of people, that is our job. And maybe that's something that we need to really take into account. Our cities are mostly places where people live in. So we should work with those people, convince those people, and get them on the same route to the same goal. And even more than ever, where you have an American president who says that climate change is the biggest con job ever, I would say that even more than ever, we need to show as Europeans, as Europe, that our cities are capable of doing that with our people in participatory projects. I think that without meaningful citizens' engagement, the sustainability efforts that we're going to put into place is risking of being ineffective and rejected. And that's the reason why I also posted this picture, which is maybe not the most known picture of Brussels, but it's a picture of the northern neighborhood, which is one of my, I would say, priorities, which is in full transition. But I come back later on that. But maybe a little brief introduction about Brussels, because we have 15 minutes, so I'll try to be as quickly as possible. The city of Brussels, which is the capital of this country, is the part in green. That's the city of Brussels with 200,000 inhabitants. And it's a part of the larger urban fabric of the Brussels capital region, which has 1.2 million inhabitants. Maybe to give you an idea, because I'm not gonna say to promote Brussels, but it's really important to get it into your head if we continue to speak about participation. And it's the fact that Brussels is often called the most cosmopolitan city in Europe, but it's rightly so. Three or four of our residents have migration backgrounds or are non-Belgian in origin, so that's 75% of the population. And that's something that we really need to work around if we think about convincing people, if you want to co-create with people, and if you want to get people around the table for getting to a sustainable city. Brussels is as well a multilingual city. I sometimes call it a nano scale of Europe. There are not only our three main languages, but in the streets, it's a bustling combination of a lot of international languages like Arabic, Turkish, Bulgarian. I mean, you name it, and you'll hear it somewhere here in the streets of Brussels. It's a very vibrant fact, but it's also very difficult, or sometimes a difficult aspect of trying to participate in Brussels. Often you'll see in underserved areas or lesser served areas that some people don't speak any of the national languages. So you need to think about how to explain trajectories or policies towards those kind of people as well. So using a very simple language or simple manner of discussing with them. Brussels is also a very dense city, especially in this historical center, which you see there where the BXL sign is in the middle. There you have 11,000 people live on per square kilometer, which is very, very dense. And that density brings also the fact that it's historically grown on a very little, I would say, surface. Taking into account as well that around the canal, which is the blue line you see on the north, is a zone where I would say people are in higher risk of poverty and social exclusion, which we call our more underserved areas. And then you'll see why Brussels has specific challenges in transferring the city towards a climate neutral future. That also brings me to the fact that because of you have a dense urban fabric and because of the socioeconomic reality of Brussels, that Brussels is also a very green city, but very unequal in access to green and public spaces. In the south of the region, you have beautiful parks and beautiful public areas, but in the north around the canal and the city center, not so much. So we have to do everything to try to explain to people, to get people involved in creating new places where they can breathe, play, and thrive. And then maybe something else to take into account. Brussels is also a city which has a pretty, well, it's not unique for Europe, of course, but a very old urban fabric. 60% of our buildings were built before 1960. So, which means that certainly also in lesser served areas, buildings are not always adapted to the climate challenge and to the sustainable needs for tomorrow. put into that as well, that these areas also have an increasingly vulnerable risk of flooding, and obviously a very, I would say, a very high risk of urban heating effect, then you see that Brussels is very specifically in some very interesting challenges that I and others, my chair colleagues, need to find a solution to. Okay, maybe before going into detail into three projects that I really want to explain to you, I'll give you a little overview of where we are coming from. This is a bit the timeline of the City of Brussels plans for climate, and then also sometimes linked to regional efforts, where I'm not going to go into detail into that, but you see in 2008 the first Agenda 2021, which was the first climate plan of the City of Brussels, I would say. 2018 was the following. 2021 we have our regional plan that was put into effort, and there was it mandatory for the communes like the City of Brussels to create their own adaptation of the climate plan based on this regional guidelines. This implemented into the climate plan 2.0 for the City of Brussels, and where we have also been part of the EU missions, so 100 climate neutral and smart cities. Maybe to give a brief introduction, but all coming back to that, is the fact that this climate plan was and is a very established using a very participatory way of creating 46 meetings, workshops, feedback loops. Everything was put into place to create a plan which was, I would say, supported by people in all of our neighborhoods, but I'll come back to that. On the regional and on the local level, we have also a council, a local climate council, which was put into place in 2024. The one on the local level is now up to me to renew and to find a new strategic guideline for them to operate in. And then the regional one is I would say a lesser, is not so, I would say, policy minded council for climate. It's more from residents, from the local administration of green environment that it's been organized, and we had the third one in July. It's perfectly aligned with what I'm planning to do. So my three explanations to you, or my three projects I want to show to you today, is something that follows a bit out of that, and that's firstly a climate plan update that I need to put into place with organizing a new citizens assembly on climate, an open call for climate, which we just have been opened up, and then a co-creation of neighborhoods in underserved areas, which are the city renewal contracts. And those are the three things that I really want to point out today. The challenges maybe a bit weird, but we're going to start with already posing some challenges. And challenges that I see in these three projects is the building of trust with citizens in our communities. It's something that we all see, I think, in our cities in Europe. That's the degradation of trust between local people in the streets and City Hall, something that we really want to work on, and is also, I would say, in these unstable moments or this uncertain times, you see that people are sometimes afraid, questioning, believing also a lot of conspiracy theories by using all kinds of wrong news outlets. But anyway, that really creates a trust issue for us. Consistency is a very big thing, where Brussels is now in the problem that we have on the regional level, not the government. So subsidies and financing is lacking for the moment, and which is a lack of consistency as well. So we want to have to put promises and trust into in place for citizens to use, for example, to renovate their buildings, but also to know where to go if they want to play a role in becoming climate neutral. And now you see that a lot of those ideas and policies have been stalled because of a lack of funding. That's something that is for the moment an issue. a socioeconomic reality in Brussels. It's a very big challenge for us, definitely in the city of Brussels. Other communes a bit less, but for us, it's really one of the main priorities. And then activating the private sector is something that we really should talk about. And finally, the public budget, like I already mentioned. Okay, this should normally appear in 3 parts, but that is not a problem. Just focus on the beige the beige rectangle to start with. So the climate plan update. It was already foreseen in the establishment of the plan in 2022 that each 2 years this plan should be updated, not only because of the changing environment, but also because innovation and pilot projects that we want to scale or replicate are really becoming more reality. So we need to adapt more to the actual context. So what we did in the original climate plan is a citizens participatory project where we had 700 citizens who were actively participated. 46 workshops were organized, and 300 proposals for actions were collected, where 150 were put effectively in the climate plan for the city of Brussels. And we are going to replicate this this citizen assembly for climate for the re-evaluation, which I'm going to start in the beginning of 2026. There are 4 main themes. It's a public consultation where citizens were invited to share their views on climate. There were the co-creation sessions and the workshops where the city held 46 thematic workshops involving residents. There was the proposal collection, where the participants submitted their concrete actions, and they were then analyzed by the climate plan, but also by the administration for feasibility. And then, of course, very important, something that we sometimes forgot, is the feedback loop and transparency, where you build trust by explaining why it's a yes, a no, a maybe, or why we are doing something else with it. That's something where what I really learned doing that is that that participation is not about agreeing on people or giving them right. So a yes, it's just that they have the idea that they have been listened to, that they have participated in a way that it not only enriches us as policymakers, but also that it enriches them in emancipation ideas of taking part in policy making. The outcomes of this citizens assembly on climate were effectively the 150 strategic objectives, the trust and the community ownership that I told you about, the support for local initiatives that they felt as a city, and also the connection between the civil society that before, or thanks to this assembly, came to an existence where before each and every one was pretty much into their own silo or their own islands. The call for climate projects, that's maybe something that I'm gonna, the most important thing of the call for climate is that it's mostly focused on citizen individuals and civil society and small businesses, but mostly civil society. And there's the impact for the climate projects are really enormous, because our total budget last year was 600,000 euros, and people could or organizations or projects could even earn 40,000 euros per project. And we have a jury put in place who are screening them on environmental impact, innovation and creativity, collective dimension, and sustainability and autonomy. For me, it's definitely also a very important role in the participation process, or to engage citizens for a green transition, because at that moment they feel really a part of this transition, and they know that the City Hall is backing them up by providing them not only subsidies, but also the support of elaborating and trying to get their project off the ground. Then the third thing I really want to say a little word about is the Urban Renewal contract, which is a very co-creating process. And it's only, and that's maybe very interesting, it's only implemented in very specific neighborhoods of our city. So I was telling you something about the Canal District. This is the reason why I was pointing that out. This urban renewal contracts that we put into place, we have at this moment 4, are really only focused on this very specific and vulnerable zone here in the city of Brussels. We have the city and the region who are co-financing it, and every urban renewal contract is at least 5 years, sometimes more, to execute a progress. I would say the building sites, but mostly it's just 5 years, and it's based on 3 pillars. It's one pillar is stone, one pillar is public space, and third pillar is socio-economical projects. Stone really means building, housing, retrofitting housing, and doing something about the housing problem in Brussels. Public space is adding greenery, adding green space for people in those regions, in those neighborhoods. And the third pillar is a socioeconomic project, which is again a sort of mini citizens assembly where climate projects can be implemented and can be proposed really for that specific neighborhood. It's something that I really want to point out because it really works. It's something that where we have a good result. It's really something that really creates an ecosystem for 5 years. And then after the regional subsidies stops, then you see the continuation of the civil society who got to know each other, who really got to be engaged in this transition for their specific neighborhood. And the results on that are really, worthily. And we are really happy to continue this way of working. So our lessons learned: citizens want a seat at the city's planning table. That's maybe something that looks a bit obvious, but I wasn't so sure about it before, because sometimes you'll probably agree that if you want to try to put into place a participatory project, that we have also that we risk of having the obvious people who are pretty much people with a well developed social competence, who are probably more richer. They have the means for it, have the time for it, they have the intellectual capacity for it. That's something that's something that we always see in our city councils, in our neighborhood councils, that in the beginning we have, by lottery or by other means, we have a good reflection of what the city of Brussels look like, but to the end of the trajectory, like after a couple of months or maybe longer, you see that it's only like these specific people that you always see, which are really much engaged, and I thank them for them, but it's not the best reflection for the city to change a neighborhood. Oh, that's too fast. So for me, lessons learned: we need to have a long-term commitment to the citizens, businesses, and organizations. The sustainable transition must be inclusive, certainly in these underserved areas. And something that for me was also a feedback is 3 words that I've put into place. It's fix, flex, and reflex. Fix, it's something it's a structure. It's for me, the 3 points are the basics of I would say participation in the transition to a sustainable future. It's one, the fix. You have to have a fixed structure or format in the neighborhood, in the street where you want to work in. So you have to find stakeholders, key actors who are really willing to be implemented on a long term. Probably it's not a lot of people. It's just people who can create or connect the dots with every actor in this neighborhood towards the city hall. The flex is a hybrid participation process where if there, for example, is a big project that has to be announced in a specific area, or you want to collaborate into a new public service that is going to be built or installed in this neighborhood. There you have like a specific need of an extra layer of participation, where this urban renewal projects from City Hall needs the expertise of people in those neighborhoods to work with. And then the reflex is the participation, which is embedded in governance. And that's not only in the administration, where you really have sometimes the problem that the city administration is not always taking participation into account in an early stage. It's also amongst my dear colleagues, where you sometimes need to convince other colleague members for the need of participation in an early stage. Hybrid backbone, engage citizens on the streets and also with an efficient digital format, because what we've seen in our participation processes is that sometimes organizing specific meetings for people who are possible to make time around 17 hours or something else is not always the best thing to do to get the information that you want. So you need to play on different scales and on different moments of time where everyone can make time for themselves to engage. And then a clear participatory roadmap for sustainable transition is key. That's something that I work on for the time following. And then maybe 3 big no's for me. Misinformation and disruption for citizens about what is citizen participation and what we want to do with it. What is our goal and what is their input? What is the expectation of expectation of men and you know what I mean.
Expectation management.
That's it, thank you. And then the limited scope, the actual power and scope of participatory innovations may be limited, leading to a feeling that participation is just tokenism. And then time, of course, budget and resource constraints, but definitely time. You should really start early enough and you really need to engage people on a very early stage. That's it. I think that's about it. That's everything that I have to say for the moment, and I'm open for questions if you want. Thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you have burning questions, you can write them in the chat, but we will address them actually in the Q&A, the breakout rooms after the next presentation. So if you just want to get them out of your head and onto the page, that's you're more than welcome to do so. But we will move now on to Sarah Zauner's presentation, please, from the city of Vienna.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know if it's working. So, okay, can you see it? Can some,
Yeah.
Laura, maybe can you tell? Yeah?
Yeah, we can see that.
Again,
can you switch again, to the second point?
Second one.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's perfect. Thank you.
Is it working now?
Perfect.
Okay. Because I can't see you anymore, but so just chat out if there are any troubles. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm Sarah Zauner from the city of Vienna, from the Director's Office for Climate Affairs, and I'm going to give you a brief presentation of Vienna's climate governance. To start with it, I'm going to tell you what the Director's Office for Climate Affairs actually is about. This is Vienna's own climate management unit that Vienna has set up. The tasks are the coordination of the strategic climate agenda in the city and coordinating and managing the implementation of the Vienna Climate Guide. We also focus on establishing instruments, on raising awareness and knowledge exchange. So basically our 3 pillars are the development of strategic foundations and goals, like the Vienna Climate Act and the Vienna Climate Guide, developing instruments, processes, and standards, such as the climate budget. And then also our 3rd pillar is stakeholder management. So it's about promoting the exchange of knowledge and bringing people and disciplines together. And therefore we have the Vienna Climate Council and the Climate Network. So, and starting with the Vienna's climate governance, which are our strategic foundations, I can start with this one. So there's the smart climate city strategy. This is the overarching strategy that we have. This defines economic, technological, social, and ecological key objectives. And actually the path how to get there is defined in the Vienna Climate Guide. This is the document that my office is mostly working on. So this is the roadmap how we actually want to achieve climate neutrality and climate resilience in 2040. And then there are also activities in place just in order to how we want actually to achieve these targets, such as the climate budget that I will briefly introduce a bit later on. Right, and now I want to focus on the Vienna Climate Guide. This has two main areas. This focus on climate protection and climate adaptation. With the updated version that we're working on right now, also circular economy will become a much bigger part, but for now, this one has climate protection and climate adaptation as its main areas. So, coming to climate protection, this is about how Vienna wants to become climate neutral by 2040. So this covers reducing and avoiding greenhouse gas emissions through reduced energy consumption, increased efficiency, switch to renewable energy, and reduced consumption of resources. It covers areas such as mobility, buildings, waste management, and the production sector. The most important levers in this area of the climate protection are moving away from fossil fuels in the transport sector. So it's about expansion of public transport and infrastructure for cycling and walking. Another important area is no more gas in heat generation. So it's about reducing heat consumption in buildings and switching to district heating. And another one is about decarbonizing electricity, so expanding renewable energies. Then the other area is climate adaptation. So this is about countering the consequences of climate change by making urban areas livable. This covers areas such as health and well-being, public space, buildings, and ecosystems. And the most important levers that are in this area is about increasing the heat resilience of the population, because Vienna can get really hot during the summer times, urban heat islands, and so it's about preventing, informing, and educating. And other areas that this climate adaptation is focusing on is about maintaining and strengthening ecosystems and climate-sensitive planning. So we're in the middle of updating this Vienna Climate Guide now, but for that we needed to monitor it. So it's basically about what we've achieved, and that's quite a lot. So it's about a project that we've already achieved are the expansion of the railway infrastructure, for example, and decarbonization of the buses. And there's also been progress in phasing out gas. So we're in the last steps of finishing like the long version of this monitoring, and shows what we've already done. And now we're starting with updating the Vienna Climate Guide. So this needs to be updated every 5 years. Now we're at the beginning of it, because we need to have the new version in 2027. And as mentioned before, this one will have a stronger focus on circular economy. So there will be the 3 pillars, like in addition to climate protection and climate adaptation, there's also going to be a strong focus on circular economy. What's also going to be included is climate neutral administration by 2040, because this is also a big target that the city of Vienna has. And climate education and climate communication will become bigger parts, because we do see them as tools for raising awareness, and therefore also for increasing understanding and acceptance for climate measures. So in order to achieve the update of the Vienna Climate Guide, there's going to be a broad participation of all departments and companies of the city, and public involvement is also planned. So once there is like a final draft, this is going to be published on the website, and then citizens have the possibility to submit written commentaries. So they are also taken into account. And where it is actually defined that the Vienna Climate Guide needs to be updated every 5 years is written in the Vienna Climate Act, which is like the legal foundation for the Vienna Climate Guide now. This went into force in April this year, so it's a big success for the city of Vienna, and it's a self-binding and governance law that anchors the goal of climate neutrality by 2040, also climate neutral administration by 2040, and it defines climate adaptation and circular economy as the target dimensions in addition to climate protection. The law is about bundling objectives, structures, instruments, and measures that are within the sphere of influence of the city of Vienna. And it also emphasizes social design and joint cooperation. So these are the objectives that are mentioned in the section 1. Now we'll move on to section 2, the governance area, to give a brief overview of this law. So there's the steering group. This consists of the mayor and all the city councillors, and their task is, for example, to evaluate the implementation of the Vienna Climate Guide. Then there is the Climate Affairs Coordination Office. This is basically the office that I'm working for, so the Director's Office for Climate Affairs that supports the steering group with their tasks. And our job is also to update the Vienna Climate Guide. And then there is the Vienna Climate Council, which is an advisory body for the steering group. This consists of 3 boards. There's the advisory board with a scientific background, the city board with key figures of the city of Vienna, and then there's also a sounding board which should ensure citizens' representation. So in this board there are environmental organizations and other organizations that work in thematic areas that are relevant for the climate. Currently, there are 45 members, and this board should advise the steering group. So it's about advising the mayor and the city councillors in climate-related matters. They have 2 meetings a year. The 11th meeting was just last week, and the 10th anniversary also happened this year in May. And they come together in different constellations, like all of these 3 boards, and then they can also advise the employees of the city on strategies that the city is currently working on. Right, so then coming back to my overview of the Vienna Climate Act, in the 3rd section there are instruments and measures, and I just want to briefly highlight 2 of them, which are the climate budget and the climate check for laws and regulation. So the climate budget is about evaluating measures according to climate criteria and then allocating responsibilities and climate targets. So it's the city's internal climate budget process that should support politicians and administrators in planning and prioritizing climate measures. There are climate budget coordinators for each business group, and together with them, goals and responsibilities are developed. And the climate check for laws and regulations. This is about an easy-to-use tool that should evaluate projects regarding to the climate impacts. So this really is a process to ensure that the effects on the climate are taken into account during the early planning phase from a project. And this tool highlights positive and negative effects and therefore should help with a decision whether a law or regulation should be passed or should be adapted maybe. Right, and then again, to the overview of the Vienna Climate Act, there's the 4th section that covers public participation and legal protection. As I said, the Vienna Climate Guide needs to be updated every 5 years, and citizens have the possibility to submit written commentaries on it. And there's also legal protection, so it needs to be updated every 5 years. And if it's not done on time, then the citizens and environmental organizations actually have to write to officially request the update. So this should really ensure that the Vienna Climate Guide is updated on time and that Vienna actually achieves its targets. So this was a brief overview of Vienna's climate governance and actually really illustrates how Vienna is doing or using its possibilities to act within its own sphere of action. And with that, thank you.
Super, thank you so much for that presentation. Plenty of information there. So plenty of material for the deep dive now in the Q&A sessions. So we have 2 breakout rooms that we'll set up now, one for Brussels and one for Vienna. And my colleagues Stefan and Adela will also be moderating the Q&A sessions within these rooms. So you can very shortly choose which room you'd like to join. I'm going to stay in the middle and help you if you get lost.
Yes, and as Laura says, you will not be automatically assigned. So please either choose Brussels or Vienna, depending on where your interest lies, where you want to go deeper into the topic. I'm opening the breakout rooms now. Please let Laura know if it works. She can help you with assigning yourself to one of the rooms if needed.
Okay, so welcome Brussels room back into the main room. And perhaps I could
Sorry for the delay.
I'll start with Stefan and the discussion in Vienna. Could you summarize perhaps one or two of the main points? I know many topics were covered.
Yes, we did indeed cover many points, but there were questions from other cities, Stuttgart, Izmir, on how the process was set up and what were the big successes. There were also questions about how you can actually support building owners and also big building complexes that Vienna is famous for in the transition out of gas. Also impressive that the whole public transport fleet or a major part is already climate neutral. So these were kind of the big successes shared. It is a very broad and participatory approach, both within the city, different departments to get them on board, but also with other stakeholders, not forgetting marginalized groups, minorities. Yeah, what else can I say? And it also steps in where the national level kind of doesn't cover in a similar quality and quantity. For example, the Vienna Climate Council is really a best practice example shared widely, while the National Climate Council, for all its merits, is rather inactive now and had a few, let's say, follow-up implementation flaws that did not resonate well. So it is done differently in Vienna, and it is now also all based on exact and extensive legal basis, which helps a lot to have this process properly set up and enable follow-up in different areas. So it was a bit technical, but I would say good that it was technical because it shows how a city of the size of Vienna can actually implement such an elaborate strategy, but produce ambitious outcome as well.
Great, thank you very much. And then Adela, perhaps you could summarize some of the discussion that was in the Brussels room.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a very interesting discussion. It was very interactive, I think. We started off touching upon how you can convince people to join the projects, how you tackle Brussels being a cosmopolitan and multilingual city, how to unite people in that area and conduct outreach to make it a more participatory process. We also touched upon engaging migrant groups, refugees, minority groups, how they can be included as well. And there was a lot of questions from cities as well, so I was very happy about that, and I think it went very interestingly.
Excellent, thank you so much, and thanks once again to both our speakers, Frederik and Sarah. It was really fascinating, so thank you very much for joining us today. So before we let you go, we also want to let you know what we're doing at the moment. It's a very busy time here at ECoD because we are looking for the very next European Capital of Democracy. So Cascais will take over in 2026, but who will be European Capital of Democracy in 2027? Applications are now open. They opened at the beginning of September and will remain open until mid-November. So we're at phase 1 here, the application stage. In mid-November, all the applicant cities will also join the European City Network. So they'll be becoming part of our family of cities from across Europe. And we leave it then to the experts jury to evaluate which cities are the most outstanding applicants. They will go and visit them, see what's happening on the ground, and finally compile a shortlist of 3 cities, the most outstanding cities, so that the citizens' jury can make the final selection. So each and every one of you can sign up to become a citizens' juror. The final selection works very much like the Eurovision model. You can't vote for your own city or a city within your own country, but you can certainly evaluate all 3 if none of them come from your home country. So please do sign up now if you want to become a citizens juror and see how the selection process works. Which cities are we looking for? So anyone within the Council of Europe plus Kosovo, We have a cap of 100,000 inhabitants as a minimum, just to level the playing field a little bit. But we are looking for, by no means just major cities, capital cities. Cities of all sizes are welcome. Cascais itself is a rather smaller city. It's at 260,000, Stefan? Am I in the ballpark there?
In the ballpark, even a little bit less, I think, 230 or something. Yeah.
230,000, yeah. So by no means a large city such as Vienna. Now, obviously, the candidates should be valuing democracy with free, fair, and regular elections and an independently elected city council. So the bulk of the application is 3 democracy projects that are ongoing, and then 3 new project ideas. Where do you see the trajectory of democracy in your city? And of course, there should also be the basic capacity to host a democracy year with international transport connections and hotel availability, so on and so forth. So that's the overall picture of who we're looking for. And a little bit of more detailed look at the timeline. We're in the application phase now. Then the applicant cities will access the network before we have the 2-step evaluation process. First, the experts jury, and you can see who they are on our website. And then finally, the citizens jury, which is comprised of citizens from all across Europe. And as I mentioned before, you yourself can be a member. So we will announce the next European Capital of Democracy in March 2026. And then they have 9 months to work together with our team to develop the program and finally open their democracy year at the beginning of 2027. So yeah, if you would like to apply to become a European Capital of Democracy, if you're working in a city administration and you think this sounds like the thing for you, please get in touch with me or Stefan. Or if you have a city in mind, you think, hey, they're not in the network and they would be a great candidate, give us a heads up, let us know, and we can try and reach out and get in touch with them. But for now, I would ask you to please share your thoughts with us. About this webinar, you can scan the QR code here and describe your impressions from the webinar in 3 words. Okay, so it only remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you in 2026 when we will continue this series of webinars. So thank you very much for your time today.
Bye everyone, see you soon.